This is a conversation that has had my eye physically twitching.
If you don't spit your truth first, someone else is gonna do it. Don't be a coward.
This is a stop motion channel mainly, but if I don't say this first, I'll miss out.
Or worse, you'll be accused of copying someone else.
The term fatherless is a common way people on the internet address mentally ill behavior. It expresses a collective awareness of the effects of absent parents, and although it is often sarcastic, it is funny because it is true. Generation Z is rightfully calling out a pattern of irresponsible parenting that is widespread. We are rightfully concerned for the future of Generation Alpha and the effects of child neglect. On a particularly restless day, on a restless midnight, a question instigated a war in my head. If there are background checks in the process of adoption, why aren't there any checks for normal births?
We are flying over Boston Common, in the heart of Boston, one of the oldest of America's great cities.
The Adoption of Children Act was passed in the U.S. state of Massachusetts in 1851. It required judges to determine that adoptive parents had sufficient ability to bring up the child, and that it is fit and proper that such adoption should take effect. Since then, there have been more laws and amendments for the same purpose of ensuring the needs of the adopted are met. The current process of adoption usually includes the following: interviews with social workers, background checks, home visits, mandatory training sessions, and attending a court hearing for the judge to approve the adoption. But there's no such processes in biological births. Things like CPS, Child Protective Services, exist, which interfere when there is reason to believe that a child's welfare is under threat, regardless of whether they are adopted or biological. Biological reproduction is a human right. Americans historically don't like the government being intrusive in their rights, and the concept of birth licenses makes someone immediately think of eugenics, electing who gets to reproduce and who does not. So I will clarify the intention of a birth license. The main goal of a birth license is to reduce child neglect. Here are the requirements for a theoretical birth license that addresses human rights concerns. Number 1. The prospective parent has to meet a standard of mental stability. Substandard qualities include mental illness, diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder, drug addiction, anger issues, and other socially contemptible behaviors. The second requirement is directly derived from current adoption background checks, which is criminal history, child abuse charges, and the such. The third requirement would be mandatory parenting classes. Prospective parents should complete courses on child development, parenting techniques, and basic child care to ensure they have the knowledge to care for a child. Not everyone remembers what it was like to be a child, and therefore not everyone knows how to think like a child would, which is essential when it comes to understanding and having empathy and connection with a child. Parenting classes could aid in that and other similar psychological aspects. The fourth and final requirement would be financial literacy courses. These would ensure the parents understand budgeting, savings, and basic financial management to support a family. In summary, the requirements are mental stability, criminal record, parenting classes, and financial literacy classes. Physical stability is not included because physically ill individuals would probably not choose to have a child in the first place. Mental stability isn't just limited to mental illness. Parents with unstable habits like hoarders and morbid gluttons or gambling addicts are included. Nicocado avocado would not meet the standard for a birth license. Financial stability is not directly included in the requirements because, as ChatGPT wisely suggested, not allowing financially unstable populations to reproduce could perpetuate cycles of systemic discrimination. Also, sometimes having children is someone's plan for eventually achieving financial stability. Having a family that supports each other financially is better than working alone.
Once again, the machine's superior judgment prevails.
UNICEF reports that children receiving adequate emotional support at home are 40% less likely to exhibit signs of mental health issues. Another study found that students with involved parents were 30% more likely to graduate high school and pursue higher education. The birth license isn't only for excluding people from giving birth, but also providing support for people to achieve eligibility. There would be government programs to provide therapy, drug rehabilitation, and financial parental counseling. Another suggestion by ChatGPT was providing student loan forgiveness as an incentive for therapists and teachers to participate in the program. The formal requirements aren't final and can be amended. Again, the point of the license is to reduce child neglect, not to turn families into doctrine factories that all produce the perfect American child. But then, what about the children that are born without a birth license? The ones who are unfortunately unplanned? What would the government do with them? The child would be taken away until the birth license is attained. Although enforcing fines or penalties for unlicensed births isn't straightforward, severity of legal reprimand would depend on whether the birth can be proven as intentional or not in court. But the focus would be to prepare the parents for raising the child, not to exclude them from reproduction. What would the government do with the illegally birthed infant if parents cannot meet the requirements for a license? Orphanages aren't ideal places for raising children in their early stages as they currently function in the US. Which brings up the topic of adoption. Adoption is already very expensive in the United States, and I don't know what we should do about that. Let's ask ChatGPT. Which is more expensive, natural birth or adoption?
Natural birth typically ranges from 5,000 to 15,000, but can be higher with complications or additional care. Adoption ranges from 0 to 50,000, depending on the type and process of adoption.
There should be encouragement in society to adopt rather than give birth. It's not practical to force parents to adopt rather than give birth, since black children make up 22% of children in foster care, which means there would be an unintentional decline in racial diversity if everyone is forced to adopt rather than give birth. But there definitely should be more parents that consider the need for adoption before their need to continue their bloodline. We're not exactly in a population shortage, and we're never in an orphan shortage. It's important to raise awareness, birth licenses or not. You get the benefits of raising a kid while ethically reducing overpopulation. Give another fellow blood the chance of living an otherwise unintended life.
Decepticons are strong and handsome. Why would I want to adopt that?
I would have researched this information myself, but that's what I like about ChatGPT. It is usually unbiased and gives several perspectives, opposing or supporting any idea I present it with. It filters all the poppycock in Google and gives me only what I need. I wish politicians could address real issues like this instead of fart contests. How hard would it be to realistically implement a policy like this in the United States? If a president gets at most 8 years to implement a system like this before their competitors replace them, momentum is difficult to maintain. Progress is critically sluggish, and it would be a monumental achievement to get more than half of America to agree on a change like this. Everyone would need to watch this video to be caught up in the policy's facets and nuances. ChatGPT suggested.
Enact laws. Work towards passing laws that establish the framework for birth licenses. Legislation is harder to overturn than executive orders, providing more stability and continuity. Bipartisan support. Build coalitions across party lines to ensure the policy's longevity. Engage with stakeholders from both parties to create a sense of shared ownership and commitment to the initiative.
Share your quarrels and unique perspectives below and support the channel if you feel so compelled.